Today, we recognize the contributions, the extraordinary contributions of Wake Forest's most famous son, Arnold Palmer. I would like to also suggest that over the years he has been one of our most effective student recruiters. And let me get into that by telling a story. Back in the 80s, I was told that the executive director of one of America's prestigious foundations was on our campus and with one of our officers, and they were walking around Hearn Plaza talking to students about why they came to Wake Forest. So they approached one young man leaving the bookstore and stopped and said, "I know Wake Forest has a very rigorous curriculum. It prepares you well. I know that from Wake Forest you can get into prestigious graduate or professional schools." All the while the student was just nodding. So finally the foundation director said, "So tell me, what made you choose Wake Forest?" Without hesitation the student answered, "Oh, I came here to play golf. And you know Arnold Palmer played golf here." Indeed, that was a great response, because Arnold Palmer not only has attracted golfers here, he has attracted many other students here. His reputation has added enormously to what Wake Forest has become. And today, we want to honor him with this statue. The lesson of pro humanitate is to give of one's time and service to others. We know that Arnold has long served on the Wake Forest Board of Trustees and in so many other ways has given back to his alma mater, hosting donors in Latrobe and Bay Hill, serving on universities' campaign leadership teams, starting what has become a wonderful tradition of the Wake Forest party in Augusta at the Masters, and many, many other ways. Today, let me also note the way that his life has been characterized by pro humanitate. For example, he was a major force in fundraising for the establishment of the Arnold Palmer Children's Hospital in Orlando, and also a leader in establishing the Latrobe Area Hospital Charity Foundation in his hometown. And for 20 years, he was the honorary national chairman of the March of Dimes Birth Defects Foundation. The message of pro humanitate, of giving back to others, has been front and center in Arnold Palmer's life. And in that way, he serves as a great role model for all of us who are Wake Foresters. Arnold, today we honor you because of all you've achieved, and in this place, because you embody so closely all that Wake Forest represents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hatch. Now I'd like to turn it over to Ron Wellman with some further comments. Ron?
As we know, everyone recognizes Arnold Palmer as the king of professional golf, and rightly so. After all, he ushered professional golf into the TV era. If it hadn't been for him, would professional golf be where it is today? He stands for the values that every professional athlete should exhibit and demonstrate on a daily basis. He is a champion. For those of you who are a bit younger in the crowd, listen to what Arnold Palmer has done in his career. He was a Southern Conference golf champion in 1948 and 1949. He was the NCAA individual medalist in 1949 and 1950. He was the 1954 ACC champion. He won 61 PGA Tour events and 12 Senior Tour events. He won 7 majors, 4 Masters. Some would suggest that this statue faces Augusta, Georgia. He played on 7 Ryder Cup teams and captained the 1963 team. He was the Associated Press Athlete of the Decade in the 1960s. He was a Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year in 1960. Every president of the United States has requested to play golf with Mr. Palmer. And he has beaten every one. All of those achievements are extremely impressive. But we know Mr. Palmer as someone different. We know Mr. Palmer as a Demon Deacon. And he truly is one of our great Demon Deacons. Mr. Palmer has served on the Board of Trustees, and he served very well in that role. But he not only served on the Board of Trustees, when he did serve, when he came to campus, oftentimes he would go to the pit, and he would pull up a chair at a table and just wait for students to come and talk with him. And rather than him or them asking him questions, oftentimes he would ask them questions about their experience at Wake Forest University. He was our commencement speaker. And so often commencement speakers fly in the day of the commencement address and fly out immediately after the address. Mr. Palmer came in the day before the address because he wanted to meet with me about a matter that we were discussing at that time. After a 2-hour meeting that day, he looked at me and said, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, anything you want me to do." And he said, "Do you have time to give my wife and I a tour of the campus?" And for the next 2 hours, I became a professional golfer, or professional golfer, that's a misnomer. I became a professional photographer on our campus because every graduate that we passed and every parent that we passed asked if they could have a picture with Arnold Palmer. He's a fan of our teams. A couple of months ago, I was talking with him, and he began to interrogate me about our teams. And how's this team going to be, and how's that team going to be? And I said, "Mr. Palmer, do you know about every one of our teams?" And he said, "Absolutely. I watch all of your games on TV." So he follows our teams religiously. And he gave one of the best speeches I have ever heard before the Orange Bowl game. He met with the team that evening before the game, and it was by far the best preparation speech, best motivational speech that I had ever heard. He's totally committed to our program. He has done so many things for our program. This facility was designed and paid by Mr. Palmer. And when we told him that we wanted to name the facility after him, we wanted to name it the Arnold Palmer Golf Complex, he was humbled by that. He never expected anything like that in return for what he did for us. If there was ever a professional athlete who is connected in a truly meaningful manner with their university, it is Mr. Arnold Palmer. So many universities claim their famous alums, and we do the same. But Mr. Palmer claims his university as his university. Arguably, no other alumnus has brought more honor or prestige to his school. And for that, Mr. Palmer, we thank you. And we want to thank you for the influence that you have had upon all of us and the things that you have done throughout your lifetime and throughout the 65 years that you have been associated with Wake Forest University with this statue unveiling tonight. So thank you very much.
I know a lot of people here would claim to know Arnold Palmer. I'm not sure anyone knows him better than Russ Meyer, a life trustee of the university. And Russ, if you would come.
Tough remarks to follow, Arnold. I am very, very proud to be here today to help dedicate a sculpture that's not only a tribute to Arnie, but also a representation of his amazing legacy at Wake Forest. Arnie and I first met back in 1961, and we discovered very quickly that we had a lot of common interests, not the least of which was aviation, and I consider our 52-year friendship one of the blessings of my lifetime. I don't have a better friend. I've also appreciated the longtime relationship with Wake Forest. Our oldest son was a member of the class of 1985, with Jerry Haas, in fact. Our middle son, graduated a few years ago from the Wake Forest School of Medicine. I was proud to be elected a trustee in 1985 and felt especially honored to be named a life trustee. So you can understand, I think, why I was so pleased when Ron called me about 18 months ago and asked if I would be willing to assist in the process to create a sculpture for Arnie that would be placed here at Wake Forest. I had another pretty good reason for being excited about that project too. Proving how small the world can sometimes be, Dick Polich, sitting here in the front row, the man whose foundry cast this magnificent sculpture, and I first met as freshman scholarship students at Yale in 1950, working in the dining hall. We've been close friends for 63 years. He was in my wedding, I was in his. And it is a treat to work together on a project like this that has been so important to both of us. So after talking to Ron, my first call was to Dick, because he's the founder of the largest and finest artistic casting facility in the world. There is simply nothing like it anywhere. His foundry has created works of art that are located in countries all over the world. So we knew where the sculpture would be made. The question was, who would design it? So Dick recommended several sculptors to us, all of whom were very talented. But after counseling with Ron and Arnie and the family, our unanimous choice was Bruce Wolf, who's also sitting here in the front row. We'll introduce him in a minute, from San Francisco. And I'm sure you'll understand when you see in the program the works that he's done, why we asked him to create this sculpture. Once the team was organized, we gathered in Latrobe about 16 months ago to meet with Arnie and Kit, members of the family, and after looking at literally hundreds of photographs that were taken when Arnie was winning all those major championships, we selected a pose that we felt best captured his power, his athleticism, and of course his uniquely recognizable golf swing. And then the hard work really began. Bruce spent 3 or 4 months creating a 30-inch maquette as well as a bust of Arnie's head. And then a group of us assembled at his studio in San Francisco to critique the work and offer our suggestions. We made several more visits last January to further refine the details. And I would have to say that since we all shared exactly the same goal, Bruce was very patient and didn't complain too much about all the advice and the counsel that he was getting. After the third maquette, we gave him the go-ahead to start the final full-size version. I think that was in about March of last year, and then a few more trips to San Francisco to evaluate practice, and in May we were ready for the mold maker. Dick sent one of his drivers all the way from New York to San Francisco because he wanted no risk of damage to any of the molds. I wish that all of you could have seen the personal commitment and attention to detail by everybody in Dick's foundry who worked on the sculpture, a process that took about 5 months. You can understand how pleased they were when the statue was completed a few weeks ago, and when other customers would come through the foundry, look up and say, "Wow, that's Arnie." So it's been an enormous treat to work with both Dick and Bruce because they are without a doubt the best at what they do, and this has been a labor of extraordinary love excuse me, by all of us. So I'd like to, if you will, Dick, stand up, wave, and be recognized. Bruce Wolf, the sculptor. And I can certainly tell all of you, and you'll know when you see the cover off, that if you need anything cast in an artistic foundry or sculpted in San Francisco, we got the guys right here. Before the official unveiling, I'd like to say just a few words about what this statue represents. When Arnie was in high school in Latrobe, he was one of the best young golfers in the country. He played in the National Junior Tournament in Detroit in 1946, and he met a young player named Buddy Worsham, whom some of you would remember. His father was a golf professional, and they became very good friends. A year later, in the summer of 1947, they'd both graduated from high school and competing again in the National Junior Tournament in Los Angeles. While they were out there, Arnie asked Buddy if he'd thought about going to college. And Buddy told him he had just been granted a golf scholarship at Wake Forest. Arnie said, "Where is Wake Forest?" And Buddy said, "It's a really nice college down in North Carolina, and you can play golf year-round." Arnie said, "You think they'd give me a golf scholarship?" And Buddy said, "They certainly should. You're a better player than I am." So a few weeks later, Arnie received a call and asked, I think his mother sent in his high school transcript in August of 1947, and shortly thereafter, Arnie learned that he too had been awarded a golf scholarship. So a day or two before his 18th birthday, Arnie hugged his parents, boarded a Greyhound bus in Latrobe, and headed for Wake Forest, North Carolina. The journey and the legacy had begun. It proved to be a solid partnership from the first day. Arnie loved Wake Forest. He roomed with Buddy and had great success on the golf team, as you heard from Juan Wellman. Sadly, during homecoming weekend during his senior year, Buddy Worsham died in an automobile accident. Saddened by the death of his best friend, Arnie left Wake Forest at the end of the semester and completed the military obligation that we all had back in those days by serving a 3-year tour in the U.S. Coast Guard. He came back to Wake Forest in the spring of 1954 and won the inaugural ACC championship. He also won the U.S. Amateur that summer and quickly became one of the greatest players of all time. I think while everyone knows about Arnie's career on the golf course and the many honors he's received, I'd like to focus just a few comments on his loyalty and his commitment to Wake Forest. As soon as he had some early success on the PGA Tour, he created a golf scholarship in memory of Buddy Worsham. That was followed by a whole series of Arnold Palmer scholarships. A long list of Palmer scholars includes Curtis Strange, Lanny Watkins, Jay Haas, and Jay Haas's son, Bill. Arnie was first elected to the Board of Trustees in 1983 and of course is now a life trustee. He made numerous trips here in the 80s and 90s to evaluate potential sites for a new Wake Forest golf course. And when the agreement was signed for Wake Forest to play at Old Town, as Ron said, Arnie and his team came up here and designed this fantastic practice complex, which is clearly among the finest in the country. As Dr. Hatch said, I think Arnie's financial support for hospitals in Orlando and Latrobe is pretty well known. What isn't so well known, because he would never mention it, is his great generosity over the years to Wake Forest. And perhaps even more impressive is his commitment of time. He was co-chair of the largest endowment campaign in the history of Wake Forest. And it was not just an honorary role. He was actively involved in the planning, and he met with numerous major donors. During many of the years when he competed in the Masters, Arnie personally hosted a reception for Wake Forest at Jim Beckton's Ellicott home in Augusta, a reception that quickly became a standing room only event. Whether talking with parents, encouraging young players to enroll, or hosting events in Latrobe or Orlando, he has never turned down a request to help because Wake Forest has been such a meaningful part of his life. And I think it's important, by the way, to emphasize that Wake Forest has embraced Arnie to an extent that transcends the manner in which any other major university has ever embraced one of its athletes. We know where many athletes have gone to college, but there's not a relationship at any university with any athlete that's even close to the partnership between Arnie and Wake Forest, a partnership that is just beginning its 67th year. Perhaps this dedication today will inspire other athletes and universities to recognize the value of this kind of mutual commitment. Arnie has won many major championships and has earned some impressive awards, including both the presidential and the congressional gold medals. But looking back on an exceptionally distinguished career, I know that Arnie will view this dedication this afternoon as one of the highest accolades because his relationship with Wake Forest has meant so much to him and his family. There is no question that Arnie is known by both past and current generations as a great golfer, a great role model, and a great American. But those of us here today have the privilege of knowing him as a great Demon Deacon as well. And the statue that we dedicate will represent for future generations the unparalleled legacy of Arnold Palmer at Wake Forest University. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Arnold Palmer.
Well, what can I say? I'm overwhelmed. And, let me just think a minute to get my thoughts together. But I think of things that happened. Ray Harris sitting on my left over here, one of my buddies from many years ago and on the golf team. And I see so many people here, Jesse Haddix, Gene Hooks, all the people, Jack Gentry. Good gracious, it's tough. It's tough for me to not just sit down and not say anything except that I appreciate what has happened here, and to know the people that are involved and have been involved. I think about our president, Nathan Hatch, and what he has been doing and how he helps make what I do a lot easier for Wake Forest University. And I think of our sculptor and Bruce and Dick and Ron, and I must say Russ Meyer. Russ is a guy that don't get him on your case because he's never going to get off of it. He's going to stay there and do it right. And as he said earlier, he is a friend of a friend that's the best you could ever ask for. And then I think about other things that have happened through the years. And ladies and gentlemen, don't worry, I'm not going to talk too long, but I mentioned a few things, and I could go on and think about Jesse Haddix over here. And then when I came to Wake Forest the first time and walked across the campus, and a couple of co-eds coming in the other direction said to me, "Hey!" And I put my golf clubs down and my suitcase, and they kept walking. Well, being a Pennsylvanian, I didn't quite understand that. But now I do. Hey, y'all. Anyway, that was the way it was, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention some other people like Jim Weaver. And for those of you who do not remember who Jim Weaver is, he was the athletic director that gave me that scholarship that happened so many years ago. And I walked into his office in 1947. I smoked a little myself, but I saw something I never thought I would see, and his office was not very large. It was in Gore Gym, and he had a desk and a guy, a little round guy, sitting there. When I mention his name, you'll all know who I'm talking about. P-Head Walker was at the other side of the desk, and they looked at each other, and Walker said to Weaver, "Who's that?" And Weaver says, "Oh, he's just one of the golfers. He's going to be on my golf team." P-Head looked at him and says, "No, no." He says, "I can't let you do that, Jim." And he says, "What do you mean you can't let me do that?" He says, "I'm going to take him to be a running halfback on the football team." Well, that's how I started at Wake Forest. And of course, those two guys became two of my best friends in life, later in life. And of course, I got to know P-Head through the social functions and various things that he did. And Jim Weaver never failed. He was always right on the spot to help do whatever we needed to do as far as a golf team and as a school. And he was one of the great guys. And I think that most of you know that he was responsible for what we know as the ACC today. Is that a fair? And he was the first commissioner, right, Jesse? So those people, and of course I could mention the people that I've seen here today, but we'd be here all night, and I don't think you want to be here all night. I sure don't, because now that the Baptists have given up the thought about not having a drink, I'm going to have one. Well, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank Wake Forest. You know, you can do things in your life, and you can watch what happens in your life, and you go back to the things that meant the most to you. Wake Forest meant the most. It's the greatest, nicest thing that ever happened to me. And to all of you, students, faculty, fathers, mothers, people who come here, see what is happening. I just hope that you get the same pleasure out of the rest of it as I have in my lifetime. Thank you very much.
No one says it better. I would just like to express my appreciation for our sculptor, and I would like him to rise one more time to be recognized. Bruce Wolf, have you seen anything like this? And Russ's good friend, Dick Polich, the casting foundry. Thank you, Dick. And a very special thanks to Russ Meyer. No one will ever know how many hours and the dedication that he gave to this project, the trips to San Francisco, and after every trip he would call me and give me details that I didn't begin to understand about the statue and its status. So Dick, why don't you stand and let us recognize you for everything that you've done. Arnold, this statue is staying here. We can't give it to you to take to Florida or to Latrobe, but we do have a picture of this statue that we hope that you will take and display proudly in your home. And this picture was taken earlier this week at 6:30 a.m. So Arnold, come on up here and accept your picture. Ladies and gentlemen, helping him take it home will be his wife, Kit Palmer. Kit Palmer, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this momentous occasion. Mr. Palmer, again, thank you for all that you have done for our university and the love that you expressed tonight and continue to have for the Demon Deacons. Go Deacs, everyone.